we are back. I welcome to the H3O podcast once again. I am solo today. Jason is out coaching the youth and molding and shaping young lives, coaching baseball. But we have a super special guest that we met last year. I think it was last year, Total Archery Challenge. We'll talk a little bit about kind of how that happened a little bit organically. And we've kind of kept up a little bit via social media and some things like that over time. Super, super busy guy. Has his hands in more things than I probably will be able to mention on the podcast today. But Les Welch, good to have you, man. Good to finally catch up and get an opportunity to tack down maybe an hour of your time because you are a busy man.
It's been a minute. I think it was Colorado Total Archery Challenge, which was last summer, but
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely happy to be here. And it's always fun to talk with good people about fun shit, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm excited and just even to, get a little bit offline. You were kind of working a little bit last year. I know you were helping out Dudley with the knock on stuff, amongst other things, and talk a little bit about. I think as you and I had just a few kind of parking lot conversations last
Literally.
year, I was always just kind of like, man, how did he get involved in that? And like, how did he get going, with these people and those guys and whatever, and come to find out, like, you have kind of had this journey that's manifested itself into a lot of really cool stuff. So, I kind of want to start there, and then we can build conversations off of things that come up. But talk a little bit about your background, and we're going to talk about some training and all that, because I know you're big into that as well. We'll touch on that down the road, but talk a little bit about kind of your origins of getting into the outdoor world, because I think it's really intriguing, as I found out when you kind of let me in the crack, behind the curtain.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were literally pavement parking lot conversations is how we met.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah.
No, I've just ever since I've been, wee high, the outdoors has been my thing. I can remember Saturday and Sunday mornings at 4 a.m. getting up when I was 5 years old, and my dad taking us ice fishing and
Yeah.
hunting and that whole thing. And so it's just, that's really where that manifest came from. And it just always stuck. I never drank or partied or any of that stuff in high school or anything like that. My best friend, even to this day, we would, our deal was getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then, this was before you could drive, and we'd hike a mile carrying all of our fishing stuff and set up and fish catfish until daylight, and then, go find carp to shoot. And then after that, you might go call turkeys, and, and literally that's just where it came from. And that's why I am where I am today, so as far as all of the industry stuff, I've been involved here for a long time. Just I have a machine and engineering background, over 20 years doing that, and it was it was good. It paid well. I enjoyed the real tiny complex parts. We made knee replacements and heart valves. My dad had a heart valve replacement, and we make that exact valve that's in his heart. And a striker knee replacement that my mom has got, we made those exact knee parts. So it was complex and interesting, but it wasn't really truly my passion. It's what my
Right.
dad did, and how that goes. You kind of follow footsteps for some part, good, bad, or otherwise. That's just kind of the way life goes sometimes, And
Yeah.
I've just, I think since the internet was born and I found Bowsite way back whenever it was, I have just always followed that kind of social media and would always comment on different people's posts and, and ask questions and give answers, and just because that's what my jam was. And I just remember one day, Corey Jacobson, everybody knows Corey. If you're in the elk hunting world at all, I believe he's 11-time world champion elk caller.
Right.
He reached out through Bowsite, and it's been like 2010. And I was like, oh, I got a DM from Corey Jacobson. What the heck, And
Right.
that DM says, hey Les, we're looking to add some team to the Sitka Gear Pro team, ambassador team, whatever it was called back in the day. And I was wondering if you'd be interested in something like that. And So, you're obviously typing back and you're like, well, can you tell me a little bit more? I'd like to think about, yeah, I would, duh. And, so that's just where it evolved. I got on the big game team as an Eastern guy. I spent a lot of time out in the mountains here the last 15 years and just got really good and passionate about it. Even though I'm a huge whitetail nut, that's how I grew up and stuff. They brought me on as a big game guy, and it's been kind of full steam ahead since then.
Yeah. Well, and I think what we found is similar to that. Corey's not emailing or messaging me, although I have attempted a few times. But some of the things that we found early on was just as you meet or engage people, or even just with the easy access of social media now, like how many people when you reach out and say, "Hey," and if you're intent is genuine and you're not out for something, I think there's a lot of that goes on where people are always looking for something and like, hey, like I want to try and like get this, or can I have this, and you get a lot of that. Like if you have genuine intent behind why you want to either get to know someone or learn from them, or just ask questions and stuff like that. I mean, we've just been so blessed in a lot of ways with how open people have been to, just want to talk to us or share information or whatever. I think for us, the first one of those for me, kind of talking about how yours was with Corey, was actually with Steve Chappell. And, Steve Chappell has Elk Camp TV. And I remember years and years ago, the first time that I saw any like calling and videos on stuff like that was from him, which was probably like well over 10, 15 years ago. And I just kind of randomly reached out to him and I'm like, hey, we're starting a podcast. And of course, nobody knows us, and at least, 20 people know us now. So, we're really making big gains here. But, and he's like, yeah, sure. That'd be awesome. And I was almost like, wait a minute, really? Like, you want to talk to me? I'm like, you have no idea probably even who I am. And like, so I'm like, okay, cool. And I go and I tell Jason, I'm like, hey, Steve Chappell said he'd do a podcast with us. And, it's like almost just, kind of a little bit surprising. And he's like, yeah, how's tomorrow sound? And I'm like, whoa, really? And, so it's just like, those are just really cool experiences where, I think there's levels of that too. And, a lot of people in the industry as well that, probably have what some people would consider, a little bit of a celebrity status, if you will. But, for the most part, they're just good people. And it's amazing how much they're willing to share or, give out information or just even be open to conversation. And that's what's been pretty cool. So, moving on from there, like, now I know you have involvement with like Leupold and Kafaru and Rockslide and some of that. Like, talk about the growth process as kind of getting more involved in some of those things. As you said, like, yeah, I kind of have this, what I did for a living, but this is kind of what I really want to do if I had my choice. Like, how did you start kind of like manifesting that into something that became more of what you do and less of what you wanted to do?
Exactly. And just to back up a little bit, what you said about, people in the industry being, really good people, that, for the most part, you'll have some of the best people I've met, and some of my best friends now are people in the industry. And, you always have some fakes and some, like you said, people who are just in it for the wrong reasons. And those people will weed themselves out really
For
quick. It
sure.
just takes, a matter of very little time, and that shows. But I, I have learned so much, and eh, not to sound any particular way, but like as successful as I've been with hunting and the things I do, it's mostly because of the people that I've been able to meet through the industry, and um, not to shortchange drive and determination, because I do not really quit on a whole lot. So, um,
We'll talk about
not,
that too.
yeah,
I guess.
not that I'm real good at anything. I'm just too stubborn to quit, man. So, yeah, but back to how things manifested. Like I said, I started with Sitka in 2010, and been friends with Aaron Snyder for years through bow sight, and had never met him. And that was also in 2011. Mother's Day weekend. So it was early in May, I remember. And I just reached out to Aaron on social media and said, "Hey, dude, what are you doing next weekend?" And now, we'd never met or anything. We were just, social media friends, answered DMs back and forth and chatted. And he's like, I don't know, you got to know Aaron, but, he's pretty short, doesn't say a whole lot. And he's like,
Right.
nothing.
Yeah.
What up? And it's like, hey, I was thinking about flying out and maybe go hike in the mountains. And he's like, sure. I was like, whoa, wait, what? And it's like, yeah, just let me know when you're going to get here. And so I literally went on and I looked at flights, and this was on a Monday, and I flew out on a Friday afternoon, and literally he rolled up in the Jeep at the Denver airport and picked me up. And that's how I met Aaron for the
That's
first time.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty wild. We went back to his apartment, and I flew some clothes out, some sicky gear, but other than that, I mean, he had packs and he had sleeping bags and water filtration and food. It's all laid out in the living room. We packed up that night, and then the next morning we hiked in. We did about 12 miles that day, set up teepee, and then we got like 13 inches of snow overnight. It was
Of
dry
course.
ground.
Of
Yeah,
course.
we're about 11 miles in, and we got over a foot of snow. But anyways,
Yeah.
that's and it kind of started from there. And he reached out a few months later, and that's when Rockslide was going to kick off. And he's like, "Hey, I'd like you to write for the website. Would you be interested?" And I was like, "Sure." I mean, the only thing I've ever written is checks to pay bills before, but let's give it a whirl. so so we did. He's like, "Hey, we need 3 articles by whatever it was, February, I think, of 2012." And I don't even remember what those 3 articles were. I actually should go back and check some of them out. But so that kind of kicked that off. And I'd already been running Kafaru since 2008. And actually, Aaron hadn't even used Kafaru at that point. Now he owns the company.
Yeah,
But
that worked out pretty good for him.
yeah, it did. No kidding. But yeah, so then it kind of just manifested from there. Sitka got busier. That was when that snowball was just really starting to take off. And man, what a fun process that's been, and what great people are associated with that company. As some of my best friends today. And
Right.
Kafaru, those guys I still run. I took 7 packs over to the Minnesota Deer Classic with me this weekend for people to try on that just,
Yeah.
didn't have the ability. We don't have a Kafaru dealer per se around here, so I loaded up all my packs, and
Right.
those guys tried them on over at the Deer Classic over there, and just everything has just spider webbed out from there. Just a lot of different companies and fun things and work things and a lot
Yeah.
of my own stuff going on, and just little things like meeting you guys in a parking lot randomly when it's 95 degrees out, trying to find something cold to drink and getting ready to grill some food. It's just it's just
Yeah,
the way it works.
exactly. Yeah, it's
So
since you brought that up, I have told quite a few people where we every year that we do Total Archery Challenge, we've always shot the knock on course. It's always fun to get an opportunity to interact with Dudley, and at the same time, I think that the thought that he puts behind how he creates and positions targets and stuff like that, I think everyone would agree, he's in the top 1 percentile of understanding, shooting a bow and arrows, and where,
absolutely.
how you're going to go through the process of, landing an arrow on a target, and the way he sets up the course really just challenges you, at a level that I think some of those other ones become, even though there is a lot of novelty, I think overall in the shooting in itself. But we've always just found that that's always a fun course to shoot. And so we had shot, and we're down in the parking lot, and I see John come walking through the parking lot, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's just such a consummate, nice guy. And it's amazing. I don't know how he does it for that many shoots with maintaining his just presence and attitude, and how welcome he is to people, and interacting,
Hmm.
and
Exactly.
he comes walking down through our camp, and he's like, "Hey, anybody have any bourbon?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, He's like, "My friend's looking for some," and I'm like, "Well, come on over." And that's how we met, and
Yeah.
we poured a glass of bourbon, and he was kind of poking fun at us a little bit, and we hung out, and that's kind of where it started. And then we just ended up having a few more conversations throughout the course of the weekend. So it was pretty amazing, like you said, how things happen, and then you fast forward, and those networks of things that just you never really anticipated, and how they just kind of organically happen sometimes. And then you just, not necessarily find ways to leverage them, but just maintain keeping in contact and have an interest in what people do. And then if opportunities come from that, where maybe you can be of help or whatever, like this weekend was a good one for me. Like we had the Colorado Bowhunters Association banquet, and I met a couple of people that I've never met, like Brandon from Mountain Archery Fest was there. We had some similar, networks of people, and I never actually met him in person. And Trevin Stolzfus was there, and I went and watched him talk about hunting mule deer, and I was like, this guy's an amazing presenter. Like he is so engaging in the way that he uses himself, and he talks about like making mistakes and all this stuff. And, and I went and ended up talking to him, and he's like, hey man, I'm really having some trouble with my training. Like I'd love to talk. And I'm like, awesome. And it's like, there was nothing behind any of that. I don't want anything from anybody. And, you utilize those things to continue, growing. And we've just talked about how those things allow you to just slowly start doing more of what you want to do and less of what you have to do.
Nailed it. I mean, nothing else needs to be said, really. You're perfect, right? Yeah, when people, if we could have 90% of the people do the right thing 90% of the time, it would be much more simple and everybody would be happier. But
Right.
unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So, uh, yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It's good. And you said something, about not, not necessarily leveraging something for something, but sometimes I tell people, yeah, you meet people for certain reasons and in certain
Right.
ways, and utilize them if they're willing to let you. And Dudley is a good, he's a good example of that. He shoots with every person that goes on his course, like
Yeah.
every person who comes through that course in a weekend,
Yeah.
10 weeks out of the year. If he makes all the 10 tack shoots, he literally shoots with. And what I like about that is he's engaging. It's like when you're standing in front of John Dudley, you're talking to John Dudley. You're not talking to somebody else. He has your attention. You have his attention. Like it's that
Right.
focus. It doesn't matter what's happening right here. It's this. And it's one of the things I've always appreciated and will always appreciate about John. He's a great example that way. And
Yeah. I
if
mean,
you get the chance and he's on course, or if he's, riding the Rokon or whatever it is through the parking lot looking for a bourbon, flag him down. He'll talk. And
yeah, I
it,
remember he was on that bike and he came flying back up through, I don't remember what night it was. And he's like, if you guys are looking, and he's like, don't go to that camp down there. They have moonshine. He's like, you don't want to stay away from that, like,
yeah,
and it's just, he's buzzing around on that thing and just saying hi to everybody. And
yep.
like you said, I think he's a perfect example because the amount of information that he gives away just willfully, especially
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, shooting releases, the shot process, all the things that, he has such a high level of knowledge to. A guy like him could have said like, oh, I'm going to monetize all of my knowledge, right, and
Right.
sell these in, downloadable pieces and stuff like that. And he's always just done that openly for years, and that's what's invited people into what he's built with Knock On just in general, right, which is people
100%.
trust in him, and they seek him out, and they know the kind of person he is, which then just automatically, kind of crosses over that barrier into what he's built with that company, because people go,
Yep.
oh, well, if I'm going to buy a release or I'm going to buy this or that, or like, well, I like him and look at what a good person he is and look how much he brings to the community. And it just automatically, makes so much sense. And I think that when you go at it in that manner, it's like the success will come, as we've talked about, with, your intent being
Mm-hmm.
right. And he's always been that way.
100%. I don't think there's 1% of the people in the world who would have looked at him negatively or adversely if he would have monetized that, because it is such good information. It's
Sure.
it's it's the best that there really is in the shooting side of it that incorporates hunting. There's some great target archers out there, which John was obviously back in the day, and
Right.
and he just loves hunting too much to want to pursue that target. But you know, for him to not do that, I think is really I don't know if I'd say impressive, or just it's just really neat to see. Uh, but it's built his brand. His brand is based on that knowledge and that information that he shares freely. So it's really
Yeah.
neat. It's pretty incredible.
So you're kind of in the midst now. I know, like you and I have been kind of going back and forth for a couple of weeks here, trying to catch up and find a time that we
Right.
could sit down and do this. But in the midst of all that, the conversation has been like, oh, I'm at Northwest,
Yep.
Turkey, and I'm here at the Iowa Deer Classic or whatever,
Yep.
all these different shows. Talk a little bit about that. Like you're kind of entrenched into that. This is that time of year, right, where you've got the outdoor expo and you've got all these things. Talk a little bit about your
Yep.
involvement in that. Like, what do you do? Who do you do things with when you go to those shows? Because I know you said you're leaving for Montana, I think on Thursday.
Right.
I'm intrigued by that. I think that there's some enjoyment in that, and there's a lot of
Oh,
hustle in it too.
there's 100% a lot of hustle, but it doesn't ever feel like hustle. I mean, there's some days where you get off the airplane and you get that 2 hour drive home, and after you wind down for that hour, it's like you want to sleep for 12 days. It feels like, but it really never feels like it's work or anything that I don't love. I know people don't like to travel some, and they got to have their own bed to sleep in, but seriously, throw me out a pillow and a blanket on the concrete, and I can sleep, and I can work. I say work, and I say that very tongue in cheek because I don't. There's days we get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and we travel and we set up a booth, and then by the time it's done and you get back and you engage with people, which those relationships after the shows or events are over are, I think they're as important as the in hours for the consumers who are in checking stuff out. So there's 18-hour, 20-hour days, and then you get back up and you go to the gym in the morning, and then you hit that event again the next day. But it never ever feels like work
Yeah,
since that day back in 2017 when I just decided that it's the 9 to 5 per se typical lifestyle wasn't for me, and I decided to go this direction. It's a lot more hustle, but it's a lot more rewarding, and not a minute ever feels like work ever. So
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
guess to answer some of the questions, yeah, I think we kicked off this year with Sheep Show out in Reno, which is incredible. uh, Gosh, and we did NWTF, and I just was in Iowa last weekend or 2 weekends ago, Minnesota this past weekend, flying out to that's Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation's grand reopening, Montana Knife Company's grand opening of Josh's new building there, and I mean that team's another one that's just incredible. The snowball's rolling, and if you're watching, there's drops on social media. I mean, they're selling out of those knives so quickly, but it's the perfect, just like we're talking about, good people are doing good things, and it's coming back full circle to them. So it's
yeah,
super fun to watch and be a part of all of that for sure.
yeah. And so you'll be back on circuit, Total Archery Challenge,
2 weeks.
2 weeks. I
Yeah,
think you have to be the record holder, because I think last year, like, this is my 100th Total Archery Challenge. Like,
man, we've been going to these since it was bowcast at Snowbird, and gosh, Snowbird is probably one of my favorite places and events of Total Archery Challenge ever. It's incredible. So but it's going to be a new venue this year, a couple new mountains, and so
right.
it'll be fun. We'll see what happens, but
Did they announce where they're moving that to? I know that not too long ago they hadn't really announced where they were moving it.
yeah, I believe if you go to the website, it is up on there. I know I've talked about it with Sean, but I'm pretty sure I read it on the website as well. It is. I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but it looks really interesting. And talking with them, they've got some cool stuff planned for it. So it'll be unique, something that we've never done, I don't think, at Total Archery Challenge. So
Yeah. Well, if you've never done that, you definitely have to. I think that the popularity of that too, is really interesting, because now you have, I know there's like the Northwest Mountain Challenge. You have Mountain Archery Fest, which has its own kind of uniqueness to it. I think what Brandon has done there is really cool, which is, the replica mounts of all the world records with
right,
the targets, which is, so unique and cool. A lot of people never, get to see those things, and he put a lot of effort into that, as well as, I know that he does a disabled, where they have a course where you can take chairs through it and stuff
yep,
like that, and which, that stuff is great. And then I know there's one that's hike to hunt. I don't know if you've heard that.
yep.
That one's
I
pretty
believe there's one in
pretty
Colorado, maybe.
They had one 2 years ago, and last year they didn't. And I heard it's coming
Okay.
back this year.
Okay.
And then I know you and I kind of mentioned to you, we started the Western Hunt Fest, which is
Yep.
a little different, right? That's not just solely an archery shoot. We added a pack out challenge, which I think is super unique, and using that as realistically kind of a research project, which is
Yep.
giving people the opportunity to try and pack out what would be the equivalent of a full quartered out bull elk with head and antlers and the whole 9 yards, and collecting data and giving it back to people and actually giving them education on like, what does this require? And there's an elk calling contest. So there's a lot of these out here. And I know you've seen a lot of them, and the growth of Total Archery challenges in kind of my point, I guess, is I think what's manifested into, more of these, because, the Total Archery Challenge events are just massive. I mean, I think Colorado the first year was maybe like 800 ish, or maybe 1,000, and I think last year was over 2,000. So
Yeah, I mean they sell out to the capacity that we can handle at these different events in minutes. I mean, we could do these every weekend back to back to back if it didn't kill the 30, 50 people that it takes to put those things on.
yeah,
It's incredible. Yes, it is super incredible. If you haven't been to one, get to one.
yeah,
I've done so many of these, and over 90% of them, I've never even taken my bow out of the case. Like it's just not about shooting. It's like about being around the people and the like-minded,
right,
and talking it. I mean, that's where it's at. I mean, I enjoy it so much, but I
yeah.
did threaten a lot of people I was going to bring my bow this year. So we'll see.
Well, you should. Well, you are welcome to shoot with us
That'd be a good
anytime.
time for sure.
Yeah, we've the first year Jason and I went up, and it was kind of like, all right, well, we'll just go kind of do our thing, and I don't know that we actually necessarily shot with anyone other than just kind of connecting with someone that was shooting, in and around. You always kind of, it's like golfing, right? Like
Yeah,
you go from one
absolutely.
target to the next, and you go up there and you're waiting, and you get a chance to meet. And then last year we end up bringing more of our friends with us, and kind of said, hey, you guys got to come, like this is going to be fun. And then the guys from God's Country and Kuchar Valley out here, we shot with them the day that we shot the knock on course. And so now this year it's like trying to create this communication to everybody's like, hey, where are we going, what are we shooting, what time, all this stuff. And I'm like trying to organize it all, and I'm like sending out mass text to people. I'm like, you guys
Yep.
have to register like as soon as that thing opens. I'm like, I don't think you understand, this is like a
Yep.
freaking Rolling Stones concert. The damn thing's gonna
Yep.
be sold out in like 5 minutes. And they're like, are you sure? And I'm like, trust me, dude. Like, you're watching the countdown and you're going like, three,
Yep.
2, 1, go. Yeah, you're trying
Yep.
to get in there. It's insane, and that's, I think, what the fun of it is too, is that just it creates so much excitement for people, right? And as you said, whether you shoot or not, it's still going to be a great time, and I
Oh,
think
hundred
that's the
percent.
best.
I equate it to like how Idaho changed their non-resident elk tags now. It happens in December, and you got to go get in the queue, and then you're looking in the queue, and there's like 19,000 people ahead of you, and you're just like, what?
How is
By the
that
time it gets to,
possible?
yeah, by the time it gets there, the wristbands or the elk tags are sold out, and you're like, frick.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So talk about that a little bit, because where's home for you? Because I know we didn't mention that.
yep, I'm north central Wisconsin. I'm looking out the window right now, and normally we're might have 50% bare ground, might have 4 inches, 8 inches if it's wind blowing, but I'm sitting with like 23, 24 inches of snow right now. And it's just like, oh,
Well, you should make another one of those trips out to Colorado. It's gonna be 65 here today.
man, I saw that. So I have a couple of my best friends that I actually met through doing these events. I don't even remember the year, whatever year the Sitka Women's Line launched. I was doing Denver ISE, and I saw this lady coming down the aisle, this blonde hair just going like this, and she was like laser focused. And like we had just launched the women's line, so it was kind of like it's right there, get out of her way. I just pointed, and
Right.
so Ann and Corey are like two of my best friends now, but they're out of a suburb of Denver. They're Parker, and they posted some pictures shooting their bow this weekend out there, and there wasn't a drop of snow anywhere, and I was like,
No.
oh, dying
Yeah.
over here.
Yeah, it has been this winter as far as Colorado goes has been the coldest as it's been in snow wise as well in like 10 plus years. So we did
Yeah,
have a lot of more consistent cold and snow this year than I've seen in a long time. But as soon as I see those like 50s and today 60s, I'm like, that means there's good things coming. Please,
man, I can't tell you. Normally, we've got a lot of miles on the legs by now looking for antlers, and I got out one day here and got about 3 miles of trail mark because once the snow melts, I want to have those trails marked to go back in and pick. Our animals lost their antlers here and then got covered with snow, so we got to wait till that snow melts. But man,
yeah,
we made a bonsai trip. A good friend and I did out to the Dakotas on Super Bowl weekend. We basically drove most of the day Friday to shed hunt Saturday, and then most of the day Sunday drive back to watch the Super Bowl. But I'm ready to go. Like we're dying here. Like let me have some walking, and even if I don't find an antler, I just need to clear the mind and get out in the mountains or something.
yeah. I am I'm one of those that you would put in the horrible shed hunting category. Like I have, everybody has people that they know that are like savants or just like the
Oh yeah,
luckiest people in the world, and we had Rivers Koskinen, who's with Mile High Pursuit. Here's a little represent for him.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
the guy, I swear, like they just like turn up for that guy, like, and he
Yep.
he works his freaking butt off. Like that dude puts on massive amounts of miles. So like, I won't say that he doesn't. Luck is something that I don't believe is necessarily. It comes to those that typically work the hardest, right?
Man, we could have a conversation about that, but you nailed it. So, yeah, 100%. And that goes with anything. That goes at the gym. That goes at, the 10% elk hunting success. There's some guys that are 95% success, but
Right,
that luck, as we've been told that it is, goes hand in hand with how much hard work and dedication you put into something
for
too. So,
sure. Yeah, so that's cool. I've always wanted to utilize, I don't know, a lot of guys, especially out here as well as everywhere else, utilize shed hunting season as a really good way to kind of get the juices flowing for scouting and those types of things, which is getting back into new country and figuring out where animals have been moving and utilizing that as a way to, number one, get out, number two, have a little bit of an adventure and a challenge, and that kind of kickstarts, I think, a lot of people's early off season when that happens. And out here, as well as a few other Western states, that are really trying to change the dynamic and regulate it, which I know a lot of the avid and hardcore shed hunters are not too happy about. Do you guys have any of those regulations out in the midwestern part of the world?
the only thing we have is what we self impose. Where I want to go shed hunt right now, we're just staying out of those areas because there is so much snow. I'll probably get some hate for this and some grief for it, but I'm 100% on board with what some of those western states are doing. If you are watching the snowpack and these animals, I mean, gosh, I don't know. I feel for them. Come September and October and November, they had better watch out because I want to kill the daylights out of them. But how can you not feel for an animal that's in December up to its chest and neck trying to survive? So I have zero issue with the shed closures. I know it's only going to keep out the honest people, and I
Right,
understand you can go hike and you can go fish and you can do all the other crap that is around the deer. I'm just hoping those people that are doing that have enough sense to stay away from the deer. But we
right,
don't have anything out here like that. I mean, we can walk all winter. But like I said, we're just staying out of there. I haven't been in my areas. We're running cameras. We know those antlers are on the ground. A lot of them, or most of them, are covered up. But
right,
even when we could go after them, and they would have been visible, we just stayed out because it's just been a really hard winter for them. So
right.
I'm okay with it, but I know a lot of people aren't.
That's that, and like you said, it's a very slippery slope, and you do have both sides of that, right? Where you get the folks that think it's just complete garbage that they're doing, restrictions and stuff like that, and as you mentioned, I think that there's also a part of it where you look at it and say, well, you've went through an entire hunting season where they get kicked around and pressured and
100%.
forced to move and that type of stuff, and then you get into winter months where they're adding to that with just survival, and you have predators and you have all this other stuff. And, I think that there is some levels of that where you go, there should be a time when they're allowed to be a little bit stress free, and just
Mhm.
leave them be, and not be pushed around. We hike and do tons of miles in the summer, and we see deer all the time. And, a lot of them obviously are a little bit maybe closer to populated areas and things like that, where it's not quite as remote and stuff. And I
Right.
understand that. But, at the end of the day, I think that, I have similar feelings about that too, where it's like, there should be ways that we always think about, the bigger picture with stuff, and look out for what we hope to be the continued future, and the populations and quality and stuff like that within our hunting animals that we love to chase so much. They should have an opportunity to chill out too.
100%. And there's definitely a balance. I understand there's places in Arizona and New Mexico and the Front Range in Colorado. There's certain areas that don't get the snow. They don't get as much cold. Those deer, it isn't going to hurt if you bump them around here and there. But, it's just, I don't know who creates that and how they do it. But maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's not. I just know that whatever the laws say right now, as much as I might like them or dislike them, we'll just let them ride. And when May 1 opens up in Colorado, we'll see what's available, or whatever the date
Yeah.
is.
Well, if you're like me, it really doesn't matter, because I'm like you, and I just am on the road all the time anyway, and the amount of times that I get out is probably about 10% of the actual time I'd love to get out. So
Yeah.
it doesn't. It's not like I'm sitting around with my bags packed, going like, as soon as May 1 hits, I'm out there. Like, yeah, it's more this guy, huh?
I live it, man.
Yeah.
If somebody said today, you can only shed antler hunt or you can only hunt, take all my Matthews, take 30 some weapons. I'm done. I'll go walk every day for the rest of my life. It's literally my favorite thing there is.
Really?
So it is 100%.
I
Yep.
mean, that's awesome.
It is. I have a friend who's she's driving down into Mexico. Well, she's actually probably there. It's 11, so it's 10 out there. She's probably getting down in there now. Just 4 hour drive to go down and chase antlers. And I'm envious, man. Anybody who's hunting right now, just yeah,
So
it's
let's talk just a touch about that, because I know, like, just like with anything, when you talk to guys about, or gals about, hunting and strategies and stuff like that, there's a really I think known strategy behind how successful shed hunters find sheds, right? Like,
mhm.
I think a lot of people that don't know, which is, as you're doing this, I'm doing this now, right? Like, that don't know maybe some of the nuances of, like, where the heck should I be looking and how do I attack this? I think a lot of people just think there's this randomness to it. And it's like, it's not random for the guy that goes out and finds like 300 a year. Like,
Right.
you actually know what the heck you're doing. Talk a little bit about maybe that just for a couple minutes, where you're, I think that's just like hunting. Like, there's a process in how you get better at it. Like, talk a little bit about that, because I literally know nothing and I'm all ears at this moment.
Right. Right. Well, first of all, shed hunting sucks. You guys should be out, just eyes up here, scanning, look for rubs. Scouting. You do not want to look on the ground. It's no fun, guys. Don't do it. In seriousness, you're 100% right. In Wisconsin here, I'm looking at south facing ridges. They get the sun, they get the warmth, and especially when those south facing ridges are close to food or facing foods. Some of my best are those south facing ridges that are a couple hundred yards or within a half mile of a standing corn or bean field that makes it through the winter. Steer drop down to feed, they come back up, they sit in the sun, so those antlers are between A and B, and it's usually pretty short. And some of my best shed hunting days started out as turkey hunting mornings in new areas where I was just running and gunning, find one antler, and it's like turkey hunt's done. Now it's like eyes are right here, and it's like it's just
Turkey hunt's done.
yep, it's 100%. Like seriously, two of my best whitetail days ever were the beginning of mornings of turkey hunts in spots that I haven't been, and just you kick that first antler up, and then it's just like a squirrel. It's done. So but yeah, food, honestly, it's just like hunting, really. I mean, you can take out usually the sex portion of the rut, but if you're looking at
Right.
food or bedding, um, those antlers are between here and there.
Right.
In a nutshell, that's the easiest way to describe it: food and
Right.
bedding, and then at what stage do those animals drop? Mule deer and elk are different than whitetail. Even though the big mature buck, whitetail bucks will still not congregate necessarily with the does. They're not going to be drastically different than like the mule deer and the elk are. Those whitetails and the big whitetails and the does, might be 200 yards apart versus hundreds of yards and 1,000 feet of elevation or whatever. So knowing those differences are kind of key. But those are the big things: food, bedding.
Right. Best shed in your stable. What's your favorite or biggest or whatever? Like,
Oh man, you know what? I That's a good question. My biggest whitetail, believe it or not, is a roadie. I found in Kansas a few years ago, probably doing, I don't know, we're probably doing 40 miles an hour, and I was like, hep, hep, hep. It's right there off the road, and it's just I've got them both right here. I'll drop the mic in a second, grab them. My coolest one is one I found on a day which in Colorado's a mule deer. I My best friend and his wife lived in Colorado, and they just moved back like a month and a half ago. They've been there for 10 years. It was super nice. I could go out there and then see them shed hunt. I'd be out there in the fall hunting. I could see them hang out, whatever. But I was out there to shed hunt. Literally, I think I had 2 or 3 weeks on that session. I was out shed hunting, and they got a big snowstorm, and I knew the pass was going to be bad. I had to go up and over a pass, and it's like, it's only a few miles. So I slept in that morning, tried to let the roads clear a little bit. I got up to the pass and I started over it and dropping down, and man, it was sketchy. There was a big Suburban on its roof, a couple hundred yards down,
yeesh.
multiple vehicles. I actually turned around and I went back and I got to the top. I was like, but the sheds are that way, and I turned around again and headed out. And it was nerve wracking. It was probably one of
Oh
the
yeah.
sketchiest 2 drives I've ever had. But once I got down out of the pass, it was take off. It had just rained on the other side, so I
Yep.
hunted the whole day in the rain there. And a storm blew in somewhere around 3. I was going to leave at 4:30. Around 3, a storm blew in, and I carry a Sitka Vapor on in the pack all the time. I threw that on and I hunkered down in some sage, and it 15, 20 minutes of lightning, rain, thunder. It kind of subsided just back to rain, and I didn't go about 40, 50 yards, and I picked up an old one. We were talking about this the other day. Just like, there is never an antler left behind. I have never left any part of an antler on the mountain ever. So I mean, I got some stuff I was afraid to pick up because it might turn into like pixie dust or something. But I picked up a couple of those old chalks, and one of my keys, I find about 35% of my antlers. I walk past them and I turn around every 4 to 8 yards, and I just turn and I glance, just look at that stuff behind me. And I did, and I turned back and I'm like, that's a antler, I think. Like, and I backed up and picked it up, and I'm like, whoa, super cool. It's just a mule deer, and it's only like this big, but I'll grab it here before we're off. And
Yeah.
super neat. And then my biggest elk. I don't like the glass antlers. Now my buddy Corey, like I think he would rather sit behind a tripod and a spotter and scan them and pick them up and
Right.
mark like 10 of them and
Gridding
go do
them.
it. Yep. And I like to walk. I mean, I like to go 3 feet and go, holy crap, look at that present. It's just like Christmas morning laying there. But we had put in a good day. I don't know. I think I had a couple, and Corey had a couple, and I believe Ann maybe had one or two or whatever it was. And we come up, we're actually coming back to the truck and come up over this big bowl, and it's just huge sage, and it's just a huge bowl. And we're kind of beat. I'm like, I'm sitting, I literally sat down, flapped open the chest rig, grabbed, I was running Leupold 1050s, pulled them out, and I went like this. And I was like, holy crap. And I was like, giant, put it down, closed them. And Corey's like, ha, ha, ha. He's laughing. And like, Ann had saw my face, and she's like, no, he ain't shit. And like, I'm not even looking for the other side. Like, I'm going to that antler, And
Straight there.
yeah, Corey's good. And it's just a really beautiful 6 point. And we put in a few hours. Well, I think most of the rest of that day trying to grid it, but it's
Yeah.
public, and we were a week or two in, and there had been, guys on horses and multiple other people in there. So we
Yeah.
never found the match, but he's just a brown six, just super
Yeah.
cool. So
It's funny you mentioned that with the turkey hunting, because Jason and I 2 years ago went out, and there's an area kind of southwest from town that's just a nice easy day trip to. And so we had headed down there, and there's huge elk in that area, and there's a lot of private that kind of surrounds it down there. So the elk are, there's not a ton of ability to hunt there. So of course there's a lot of good animals, and so we had went in. And we're on public ground, kind of looking for turkeys, which most of the time is just a complete crapshoot, and you're just out there farting around trying to, see if you can track one down or even lay eyes on one. And as we're kind of walking over a ridge, and we're kind of just looking and glassing, and like Jason did the same thing, and he's like, whoa, he's like, is that a shed? And it was clear down and up and across, and it was kind of behind a pine tree, but the ground around it was all kind of that scree type stuff.
yeah,
And so, they didn't have grass and stuff like that covering it up. And he's like, asked me, and I kind of look at it, and I'm like, it might be. And so we're like, well, let's go check it out. We're just out here milling around like idiots anyway, and walk over there. And sure enough, it was a huge six. And
awesome.
and so it's one of those, like, we walked a little bit further, and I'm like, well, that one's yours. He throws it on the pack, and I'll post a picture. I think I can find it on
Yeah.
there. But and then we start walking, and like about 10 or 15 minutes later, I end up finding like a fork that was literally like, I mean, it's like the size of my hand, right? And he's like, oh,
Yeah.
there's yours. And I was like, thanks. That's awesome. I think you win.
Hey, it takes better lookers to spot the little ones than those giants. Anybody can pick up the giants, man.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
all it's
right? Like that's
yeah,
the
right.
story of my life right there.
Oh shoot. Uh,
So that's awesome. Well, if you ever want to come to Colorado and take a really inexperienced moron out and trek around with you, you're always welcome here for sure.
awesome. Yeah, I'm trying to coordinate, so I might get the locations mixed up, but the dates are right. So Colorado is always May 1, and that happens to be on a Monday this year. So
Yeah.
there's a tack that ends on Sunday night, which I believe is maybe Tennessee. Whichever one doesn't matter, but I believe it ends on a Sunday night. So I'm like, okay, do I take my flight out Sunday night, land in Denver, get the rental, go up and chase antlers until Thursday midday, drive back to the airport, fly to San Antonio for that tack, fly out
Right.
Sunday night, go back to I'm trying to figure out like, what's my
Right.
shed schedule because
So what do you do if you find a whole pile of sheds in Colorado? What are you going to do with them?
well, it was great because Sam was always kind of at the hub. He was about 2 hours from here and about an hour and a half from here, and so I could leave him at his house, and then I always wind up out there through the fall at some point with my truck for hunting, whether it be in usually I got a tag in Colorado or have a friend who has a tag or something, and I'm going
Right.
through Wyoming or down into New Mexico or whatever, and then he just moved back like I said, about a month and a half ago, so that option is out. But like I said, probably a couple of my best friends yet for sure, and a couple of my best shed hunting friends still live in Parker, which is a suburb of Denver. So actually, I believe Corey, you still got a handful of my sheds from the last trip in the basement, so you better keep that pile separate. so
little
so yeah, there's
little
that option
mark
to leave
little
them.
mark on them.
Yeah, but it's funny. We're weird. Like every one of these deer, I can tell the day I shot it, the time I shot it, how it was. And most of those sheds, even though there's a pile of 1,000 antlers in the basement, I can go pick them up and be pretty close to telling you when and where and how I found it. So I go down in Corey's and be like, yeah, uh-huh.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah,
the one other area that I wanted to get to, because I know if you look on your Instagram profile and things like that, you're pretty active on social media and stuff like that. Is it says 8-time Ironman, And so let's talk about, so you've been involved in, lifestyle wise, it's a very high priority piece for you. I know you talk about getting up and, even long days and things like that, getting up, working out and doing your kind of training or whatever. Talk a little bit about that as part of, it goes hand in hand, obviously, with people that know what we do and that type of thing. It's something that we're pushing, and we're trying to, bring more into the community, the hunting community, as well as just people in general. But, that's a huge passion for you. Talk a little bit about your journey with that. I'll tell you that I am a 0-time Ironman guy, and I don't have intentions. I always tell people that when it comes to running, that I have a strict policy, which is I will race you to the end of the block, but never around it. So that's how I approach the way. I was always a sprinter in high school, and everything was
Yep.
speed and power. And the only thing that I do long and slow is hiking and hunting, and that's pretty much it. And but talk a little bit about your journey with that, because obviously I think that there's a lot of things in commitment and sacrifice and the hours it takes, because it's such a huge, and I'm not discounting it by any means, because I find that people that have accomplished those tasks, it's so admirable, and when the amount of work that goes into that. So kudos to you on that, but talk a little bit about your journey as far as training and fitness and that type of thing goes, because I think it's pretty impressive.
Uh, Thanks. I say, or you say that, but I sit here and go, if I can do it, like I know my background, and I'll fill you in a little bit. Literally anybody can do it. It's a mental thing as much as it is a physical, probably even more mental than physical. I have, I'm not an athlete, never have been. Uh, August 26, 2008, I literally stepped on the scales at 7:10 in the morning, looked down, saw those red numbers that said 239.2. August 26th, 08, 7:10, 239.2. Those digits will always be forever ingrained. And that was the day, like, I thought I had always wanted to be skinny or fit, but I didn't, because I
Right.
never did anything about it. Mentally, you want that, but did
Right.
you?
Right.
So I wish I would have been an athlete as a kid. I mean, I played football until that first Saturday in fifth grade, when my dad said he was going hunting, and I had to go to practice. And I was like, well, that shit's out the door and done. That was legit. I told him, I said, I'm not going. We took my football stuff back that
Right.
midday, and I never played a sport again. I love volleyball, even when I was kind of not kind of was, when I was a fat kid, I love volleyball, but I didn't do anything. Anyways, that morning I said, that's when it changed. I was doing 9 to 5 at that point yet. And, I walked on my lunch breaks. I bought a membership at the YMCA after that. And I'll never forget Renee Martel, the girl who was checking me out with my membership. She says, hey, you should do boot camp in the morning. It starts at 6 o'clock. It's a great full body workout and all that. And I was like, the only boot camp I had ever heard of was like the military. I'm like, well, I ain't going to be in the
Right.
military, so I'll go do it.
Right.
Holy gosh, I couldn't walk for 4 days. Worst decision of my life, right? Um,
Yeah.
but some of those people from that day who taught me are still some of my good friends. Mike will come over and we'll sit in BS and ride bike. But anyways, it progressed from there. That was in '08. When I got back in '09 I drew a New Mexico elk tag. And when I got back from that solo hunt, I was 156 pounds. Uh, I was still like 18 or 19% body fat though. So I'd lost a lot of fat, but I'd also lost all my money or my muscle. I was just really skinny. And so
Mm-hmm.
I knew that wasn't the right way either. And, I basically just I cut out everything, including most of the calories, and just did whatever I did. And so
Right.
I decided to take a personal trainer's course. It's kind of funny. Now the book is sitting right there. I have it sitting out all the time. I'm constantly still to this day referencing it, but it's a book that thick. Went through that course. It was at the time the only college accredited personal training course that was available, and I wanted the best. I didn't want to become a personal trainer. I just wanted to learn for my own self, and that's kind of how I am. I just want to know what I'm doing and do it right.
Right.
It snowballed. I got midway through it. The nutrition aspect of it, and that book was incredible. I turned around and spent this, and this was, like I said, this was 2009. Like, I spent $700 on that course too. I didn't even finish the personal training one. I just dove right into that nutrition and learned about the body and how and why and when, and it was incredible. Ended up finishing my training course, right after that one, and now I have clients across the United States that are remotely trained, still train at the gyms here myself. But yeah, just it snowballed into there. I never wanted to help anybody, but I like people and I like helping people. I wasn't a plan to become a personal trainer. Um, and then, I guess to answer your question, I had a buddy who, again, Mike, he's like, dude, you should get a bike and go bike riding. And all I can still, that little switch in my brain back in that day was like, I see those weirdos riding the bike with those tight little shorts on and like everything all scrunched up. I'm like, nope,
Not
um,
me.
not happening. But
Yeah.
in 2012, I had both knees had meniscus problems, so I had them trimmed up. And he's like, dude, you got to quit running. That's what I was doing. That was my cardio. Was I was running.
Right.
You know, I had no headphones. I just go out the country and run. It might be 2 miles, might be 10. Enjoyed the daylights out of it. Wasn't any good at it, but it was doing what I needed, and it was
Right.
just kind of freeing. And he's like, you got to take up biking or swimming. I'm like, well, I don't swim, so that ain't happening. So anyways, went and bought a bike, and the next year he convinced me to do a triathlon. I'm like, well, I don't swim, so I should probably figure that out. And
It's gonna be important.
I mean, here or there, I guess. Jumped in the pool, and I still like a fish, like flopping around out in the snowbank. I ain't good at it, but I have one speed, which is really weird. If I swim 500 or 5 miles, like 500 meters or 5 miles, it's the same speed. And I don't know how that's possible, but it gets it
Right.
done anyways. And so I did a sprint on a Sunday uh, here in Eau Claire, and then we decided the next weekend it would be a good idea to go do an Olympic, which is twice a sprint. So a sprint is 500 meters swim. It's like a 16-mile bike and then a 5K run. And that was pretty fun. I actually really enjoyed it. So I was like, well, heck,
Yeah.
let's double that next weekend, even though I'd never, trained it for it. So it was 1,000 meters or whatever it was, 1,200 meters. I don't remember. And 40-mile bike and a 10K run. So that was pretty cool. But the next year we decided to double that and do the half Ironman. And man, swim was fine, 1.2 mile swim. Um, it was hot as all get out. Water temps were 80s.
Oof.
Temps were pushing 100 by the time we were into the run.
Yeah.
56-mile bike, which was fine. I love the bike. Now I love biking. It's incredible. And then, but man, coming down to that marathon, holy cow, feet blistered. Like I'm like, I remember on the turnaround coming back. So I'm not even 7 miles in yet to this thing. I'm like, worst day of my life. I'm never doing this shit ever again. Done. There was a handful of us that did it, and we crossed the finish line or whatever. We had multiple cars coming back to Wisconsin, and we're all in that group text afterwards, and it sucked. Like it was horrid.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we're headed to get ice cream on the way back to Wisconsin, and I sent that text, hey, what do you think we should sign up for the next one? It was this. It took like 2 hours to forget. I always tell clients and random people, whoever it is, no matter how you feel at the moment, wait till the next day to make your decision.
Right.
Let it sink in. Let you reflect on it. And I don't want to say the funny thing, but the way it worked out is my uncle got cancer in the spring of 2014, early, and he died like 8 weeks later. I just up quick, fast, done. And one day I was just, I was perusing the Ironman Wisconsin website, and it was sold out. Wisconsin sold out in minutes for years and years and years. And as I got down to the bottom, there was a cancer foundation, and they had slots open. This was 2014, and they had them available for September. And this is late June or early July. I can't remember, whatever it was. And I was like, in the moment of, I'm a very spontaneous person, but in the moment of seeing that and, just having, buried my uncle a couple of weeks prior, I signed up for that through that cancer foundation. You had to raise $6,000 to get that entry slot for the cancer foundation. And anyways, I did that in a matter of a couple of weeks, but then I'm like, oh crap, I've got 2 months to train for an Ironman.
Wow.
Yeah. To say it
Cold
was
war.
100%, but it was one of the coolest days of my life. And it's fun. I enjoy it. Like I raced the first couple and trained, where you're trained 40 to 45 hours a week. I was putting in training besides full-time work and kids.
Yeah.
Now now I do it for fun. My last two I haven't trained a bit for. I just life every day what I do. I try to work out literally every day, sometimes twice a day. Some days when I'm at events, I don't get a workout in, but you stand, you walk, whatever it is.
Right. For sure.
So you get 17 hours to do that. Basically, it's a 2.5 mile swim by the time you're done, a 112-mile bike ride, and then a marathon. And yeah, my last two, I've just let my body do what it does, and they're seriously some of the funnest days of my life. I don't quite beat shed hunting or calling that bull in and he's blowing snot at 10 yards, but
Right.
man, they're pretty close. So
But it's close. Yeah.
yeah, I have fun with it. I enjoy it. And yeah, fitness is every day of my life in some form. In nutrition, yeah, I still like to have a drink, here or there, or man, Wisconsin cheese curds they're tough on me. I
Hey.
swear I'd be 5 pounds lighter if they didn't exist.
Right. I know. I tell people cheese is its own food group, and I'm a huge, yeah, that's a tough one for me too. I love that stuff. So
All right, I
can't
know what to
can't
bring you when I come visit.
yeah, heck yeah, I can't beat that. So I actually have a lady that works in tactical. I do a bunch of work with military and first responders and stuff like that on the training side of the fence, and she lives in Milwaukee,
Oh, cool.
and so she will every now and then she'll be like, "Hey, are you going to be at this event?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Okay, cool." And she'll bring me like cheese curds, and I'm like, "You're talking right to my heart, girl." Like that's
Right. Right. I try to do that. I try to pick up a couple bags when I travel to the events out of state and just bring them because
yeah,
it is what it is.
yeah,
I,
that's
I
awesome.
I'm sure if I could smuggle spotted cow in my carry on that people would appreciate it too, but that's a stretch. Mhm.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, it's so cool to, see just, how you've essentially built, the lifestyle and kind of the way that you want, as you said, you had this great job in, the engineering world and doing things that of course have a great place, like you mentioned, heart valves and all
Mhm.
these things with like Stryker, which is a very known commodity, obviously in the medical device world and stuff like that. And you're like, those things are super needed, right? And super important to people that are obviously going to see quality, improvements in quality of life based on some of that stuff. And you're like, that's cool. And I could probably do that for 30 more years, but
Right.
it's not the way that I want to get up and go to bed every day. And, I think that's rare when you see that. And I think I'm a similar person where, when you meet people that have differing personalities based on that stuff, right? Because there are the people that I think get up every day and they're like, they want the security and the ability to forecast like next month and next year and 10 years from now. And they find comfort and a little bit of, solace in the fact that they know that I am going to do this. And if I continue to do this and in that 30 years, then I will retire and I will have this and I'll have this much money and that kind of stuff, And I think that there's a rare few people, and I'm one of those people as well, where, I started out in university, setting, being a college strength and conditioning coach for 10 years. And I reached a point where I realized that I was essentially giving 60 and 70 hours a week of my time in a place where I reached a level where I knew that I wasn't valued anymore. And I'm like, you know what? Like, this is, I'm not doing things that I want to do. I'm not controlling my future at this point. I'm just collecting that check, and the benefits were phenomenal. And, and like, I look at that stuff, and I'm like, but I think I want more than that. And I want something different than that. And I want to have the ability to pick and choose how I'm going to either do what I do. And there's a lot of ancillary stress that goes into that, which is you might
100%.
not know where that next check is coming and you might not know how much you're going to make in the next year. And obviously, like recent history, like you look at COVID and I'm like, oh boy, I had like one of my best revenue years in terms of what I was doing right before COVID, and
Yep.
then turn around a year after that and had probably made
The
less money
worst.
than my first year out of grad school,
Yep.
in 1 year's time. And you're like, yikes. But as you mentioned too, right? Like there's a resiliency factor in some of these things too. And as you said, like, hey, I'm not very good at giving up. Right. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of
100%.
goes hand in hand with some of that stuff. And if you stay the course and you have a vision and a desire to, reach specific goals, whether that be, talking about fitness or talking about getting into the hunting industry or whatever that might even be for you. Um, I've had a lot of those conversations with people and they go, "Oh, but what's your plan B?" And I'm like, if I focus on what plan B will be, then I'm taking away from what plan A needs to be,
100%.
and I'm a huge believer that if you take an approach to that, you're almost guaranteed to fail.
Agreed. Agreed. You know, there is, like you said, there's a lot to be said about somebody who wants to get up in the morning, know what they're going to do through the day, know that on Friday that check is going to be $1,800. It's going to be sitting there at 4 p.m. Saturday morning they get to sleep in, go on their boat, go golf, and Monday morning they start again.
Right.
I don't have a Monday and I don't have a Sunday and I don't have a Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday. I don't have those days. All days for me are Mondays and they're all Saturdays.
Yeah.
It's up to me to decide what day is Monday. It's up to me to decide when 5 p.m. And for me, 5 p.m. is usually 10 or 11. Last night it was 12:30, or this morning it was 12:30 when I'm like, it's time to shut it off and get my 6 hours, 7 hours, whatever I need a night of sleep.
Yeah.
But I also know that tomorrow might be checkmate, and then
Right.
somebody else, and I
For,
didn't enjoy the things that I wanted, and I've got $237 million sitting in the bank that's going to do absolutely nothing because I didn't enjoy it. So
right. Yeah.
finding that balance for me is what it's been. It'll continue to be, and uh, everybody's got their own thing, so it doesn't matter what it is. I hope that whatever it is that y'all out there want, chase that. If it's 9 to 5, hammer it, go crush some golf balls, and enjoy your Friday, Saturday, Sundays.
Hey,
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah, and that you're right. Like you said, there's nothing wrong with that. Trust me, I think that when you kind of, as you said, you have the hustle, and Mondays don't matter, Tuesdays, Saturday, like I do the same thing where I don't get up very often and go like, oh man, I have to go to, my business that, we spent 5, 6, 7 years making, and I hate it. I don't know why I made this choice. Like it's like I get up every day. I look forward to the people I get to be around, the opportunities that it presents to me. I control who I, work with and around or associate myself
Absolutely.
with and that type of stuff. And sure, there's going to be challenges. And trust me, that I think there's a lot of times where you go like, it sure would be nice to maybe get an $1,800 check this week, but I'm
Yeah.
going to stay the course. Right. And I don't
Yep.
discount that. And, or, tell people like, oh, you're an idiot. Why would you want to do that? Because, there's nothing wrong with those things. Right. But I think when you look to things that affect your happiness and fulfillment and stuff like that, that's, I think you and I have similar beliefs in how that is to be accomplished. And I know that for me, that like 9 to 5 atmosphere and taking the easy route isn't really my jam, because when September comes, I know that said boss in that job isn't going to give me the infinite amount of hours that I plan to put up in the mountains from September till the end of the year. So,
Nailed it. Yep.
right.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, man. Well, it's been awesome to get a chance to catch up with you, and I think we could probably talk for a couple more hours, and I definitely look forward to talking offline for many more. But I appreciate catching up. I appreciate your time. I know you're super busy and kind of sneaking me in between trips with shows and stuff like that. And I hope when you come to Denver next, we're just kind of on the way from the airport down to, your Parker friends and things like
Okay.
that are on your way to the mountains. And so if you want to sneak in and get that workout in, we've got plenty of
Absolutely.
space for that, or shoot the bows, or even, jump in and we'll head up to the mountain and do something fun together. So we always welcome that, and hopefully we'll make that happen someday.
Absolutely, for sure. That's we'll put that on the schedule whenever I can figure out what my schedule out there is going to be. We'll coordinate something, but it will be there. I'll be there this year. There's antlers to chase, so
Yeah. Well,
for
at
sure.
the very least, I know I'll see you in July at Total Archery Challenge. So I'll hold you to that one for sure, and hope for maybe another one at some point. So
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. Sounds good.
Yeah, and if you want to find Les in all the things that he's involved in, he's very active on Instagram. You can look him up. I'll make sure that we provide all that stuff down in the show notes as far as connectivity and the things that he's doing. He's phenomenal with just networking and being open to people, and I think that he's found success in living in the same manner that I think he had started on this mission. So he definitely pays it forward back to other people. And I appreciate that. And in, just the randomness of how we met in the first place, and just getting an opportunity to learn more about you and get a chance to, I think, hope that someday I'll be closer down that path as well in this industry, because it's definitely something that is a passion and enjoyment for me as well, and it's fun to see people like yourself find that success in through the hard work. So keep doing what you're doing, man, and I appreciate your time today and getting a chance to catch up.
100%. I appreciate it too. And that randomness is like, it brings a smile to my face. That's it's the people I've met and the way I've met them in this place is so random. I, the pay it forward part, like I tell people, use my Instagram, use my, whatever it is, Instagram, text, my phone number. I don't care. Email, like if you send it, I'll try to answer it. There's days where it gets overwhelming. If you see me, say something. If you have a question, like fire it off, man. Let's go. Like I'll gladly help anybody. We've got some really cool things coming that are going to launch this summer. Back to that, so many questions, so many DMs. Like how can I keep going with that forward? And there's some really cool things to come. But if you see
Right.
me or you need something, give a holler. Not afraid anytime. I'll do what I can for sure. Always.
Awesome. Well, we'll look forward to future endeavors and obviously the release of some of that stuff. So enjoy spring. Hopefully you'll get some snow melt up there, and
Sure.
you'll at least escape a little bit of it heading out west this week. So maybe the weather will be a little bit better out here when you come, and we'll look forward to catching up with you again soon. So all the best, man. Take care.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. See ya.